You're listening to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, created to help you succeed in your IT Fundamentals certification journey. Learn more at baremetalcyber.com, where additional prepcasts, books, and training materials await. Let's get started. In this episode, we explore how access is managed after a user has been authenticated. The focus is on two key security concepts: authorization and the principle of least privilege. Authorization determines what users are allowed to do once they have proven who they are. Least privilege ensures they are only granted the minimum access required to perform their role. Both ideas are foundational to secure system management and are tested in Domain 6 of the Information Technology Fundamentals Plus exam. The ITF Plus exam often includes questions that connect authorization with authentication, sometimes within the same scenario. You may be asked to identify what actions a user is allowed to perform or to decide which access control principle is being used. While the exam won't ask you to configure settings or manage permissions, it does expect you to understand these terms conceptually and to recognize them when described in real-world examples. Authorization is the process that determines what a user is allowed to do after they have been authenticated. Once the system knows who the user is, authorization rules define which files they can open, which systems they can access, and what commands they are permitted to run. These rules are typically based on the user's role in the organization, their group membership, or the permissions assigned to their account. There are many examples of how authorization works in practice. One user may have read-only access to a document, meaning they can view it but cannot make changes. Another user may have read and write access, allowing them to both view and edit the content. Administrative users often have broader permissions, such as the ability to change system settings or access restricted areas of the network. These differences are all based on authorization rules. It's important to distinguish authorization from authentication. Authentication is about confirming identity, proving the user is who they claim to be. Authorization comes after authentication and determines what the user is allowed to do. Both are part of a complete access control process. On the exam, recognizing the difference between these two steps is essential, especially when answering scenario-based questions. Access control lists, often abbreviated as ACLs, are one way to enforce authorization. These lists specify what actions users or groups can perform on a resource. For example, a folder might have an ACL that allows one user to read its contents, another to write new files, and another to delete data. ACLs are often attached to files, folders, or network devices. While you won't be asked to manage ACLs on the exam, you may be asked to recognize them as a method of defining user permissions. The principle of least privilege is a core security practice that limits user access to only what is necessary for their job or task. This minimizes risk by preventing users from performing actions they do not need to complete their duties. For example, a data entry employee should not be able to install new software or access sensitive server configurations. Applying the least privilege principle ensures that access is tailored and controlled. Examples of least privilege in action include restricting regular users from installing programs, granting temporary administrative rights only for the duration of a task, and ensuring that only authorized staff can access sensitive configuration settings. Each of these actions prevents unnecessary access and reduces the risk of accidental changes, malware infections, or data exposure. The exam may describe these situations and ask you to identify them as examples of least privilege. The benefits of enforcing least privilege policies are substantial. First, it limits exposure to malware by preventing unauthorized downloads or software installations. Second, it reduces the chances of accidental damage to files or settings. Third, it supports security policy enforcement by narrowing the scope of access for each user. This means fewer accounts with powerful permissions, which results in a smaller attack surface for intruders. Another common access control method is role-based access control, or RBAC. In this model, permissions are assigned based on the user's job role rather than on an individual basis. For instance, all users in the editor role may have access to modify documents, while all users in the viewer role can only read them. This simplifies account management in larger organizations by applying rules consistently across job functions. The ITF Plus exam may include questions that require you to recognize different authorization strategies. You may be asked to match an example to the concept of least privilege, such as limiting software installation to IT staff only. Or you may be asked to identify role-based access by analyzing a situation where permissions are assigned based on job titles. These questions test your ability to distinguish between access limitation models and how they apply to common IT environments. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Authorization settings are enforced by the operating system, network infrastructure, or individual applications. These settings determine what files a user can open, what commands they can execute, and what features they can access. Depending on the system, this may be managed through checkboxes in a user interface, group memberships on a domain controller, or command line tools used by system administrators. While the Information Technology Fundamentals Plus exam won't ask you to configure these tools, you are expected to understand how authorization is applied conceptually. Auditing and access logs are essential tools for monitoring how authorization policies are followed. These logs record which users accessed what data, at what time, and from which device. Auditing helps organizations track usage patterns, identify potential security violations, and support compliance efforts. If a user accesses a file they should not have, the access log can provide the evidence. These logs are also used in forensic investigations when analyzing suspicious behavior or data breaches. Authorization plays a vital role in preventing insider threats. While most security efforts focus on keeping outsiders out, many incidents involve insiders who misuse their access. By limiting what each user can view or modify, organizations reduce the risk of internal damage, whether intentional or accidental. This protects system integrity and ensures that sensitive operations are not performed by users without the proper qualifications or approvals. When authorization is not configured properly, the consequences can be significant. Over-permissioned accounts may allow users to view, change, or delete data they should not access. Misconfigured roles can unintentionally expose administrative features or sensitive information. These oversights may be exploited by attackers or lead to unintentional errors. The exam may describe scenarios where users have more access than they should and ask you to identify the risk or principle being violated. There are several important terms to memorize for the exam. These include authorization, access control, permission, and role. You should also understand related terms like least privilege, access control list, and role-based access control. Knowing the meaning of each term and how it fits into an access management strategy will help you interpret exam questions more accurately. Most questions will be scenario-based, so understanding how these concepts apply in real-world situations is essential. Sample exam scenarios may include statements like, "A user can only read documents, not edit them." This is an example of limited authorization. Another question might describe a system where access permissions are based on job titles. This is role-based access control. If a situation involves restricting admin rights to only the IT department, that reflects the principle of least privilege. These scenarios focus on the relationship between users and their allowed actions. You will not be expected to manage access control lists, write file permission syntax, or configure any system settings. The Information Technology Fundamentals Plus exam focuses on recognition and conceptual understanding, not technical skill. There are no questions about policy enforcement tools or command line operations. Your task is to understand the policies and principles behind access management and how they contribute to a secure environment. Authorization is closely related to other core security principles. It supports confidentiality by ensuring only approved users can see sensitive data. It reinforces integrity by preventing unauthorized users from altering files or settings. It also supports availability by protecting system stability, restricting who can make changes, ensures that systems remain operational and properly configured. In combination with authentication and logging, authorization completes the access control process. In every IT role from help desk support to network administration, understanding authorization is essential. Whether creating new user accounts, responding to access issues, or managing group memberships, support professionals must be able to evaluate what a user is allowed to do. Authorization also helps prevent common problems like accidental deletion, misconfigured settings, and unauthorized data access. Knowing how to apply least privilege and recognize over-permissioned accounts helps protect both the system and its users. These concepts also serve as a foundation for more advanced cybersecurity certifications and roles. Whether pursuing Security Plus, CYSA Plus, or beyond, the principles of authorization and least privilege are continually reinforced. They are built into identity and access management systems, policy development, and incident response procedures. Mastering them early provides a critical advantage in any IT career path and ensures you're prepared to make informed, security-conscious decisions in your role. To summarize, authorization controls what users are allowed to do once they are authenticated. The principle of least privilege limits that access to only what is necessary, helping reduce risk and improve system integrity. Role-based access control simplifies management by applying permissions to user roles instead of individuals. On the Information Technology Fundamentals Plus exam, expect to answer scenario-based questions that require identifying authorization models, access limits, or policy types. Recognizing these concepts helps build a solid understanding of how access is controlled and secured. Thanks for tuning in to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, your trusted source for cybersecurity news and insights. Remember to subscribe at baremetalcyber.com so you never miss an update. And visit cyberauthor.me for best-selling cybersecurity books that equip you with expert knowledge. Until next time, stay secure and stay vigilant.